If you often feel like your weeks just run away from you and there are so many things in your business that you would like to do or know you even should be doing but don't get around to doing, then this video is for you. Today, I'd like to share something with you that I've been using in my own business for the past 5 or 6 years, which means that I get more done in a week than most people do in a month. Now, that's not a humble brag, and this definitely isn't some kind of productivity hack video. This is a simple system that I've been using and that we teach our clients to make sure that you actually get time working on your business. I call it the weekly planner, and it's a really simple system that just allows you to prioritize your week and make sure that you're focusing on the things that are actually going to move the needle in your business. So it's part of a bigger system that we use to help agencies really grow and scale systematically. So I'll talk you through the creative life planning system quickly first. And I'm just going to move my head up here a little bit so I'm not blocking anything. So when we're working with agency owners, the first thing that we want to know is like, what is the ultimate vision or what is the end game? And this can be a varied amount of time, but usually 10 years into the future is a good time frame. We really want to think about what's the ultimate vision, what's the long game. Do you want to sell your business? Do you want to be working a certain amount of hours per week? What does life and business look like in a decade's time? And this is really just a guiding compass. It's the thing that allows people to get out of bed in the morning and to maintain that level of motivation. Then what we want to do is look at milestones. So we take that ultimate vision and break that down into 1, 3, and 5 year milestones. Now, this is just how we do it. Again, this is a guide. This is a system. This isn't a prescription. So you can do it however you like to do it. But ultimately, we need some milestones. And our milestones are our map. Now, I've used the dots intentionally. MAP is an acronym, and it stands for measurable, accountable, and purpose-driven. The difference between the vision and the milestones is the vision is ultimately where we're going, and it can be a little bit intangible. The milestones or the map are measurable things that we can actually take in our business and say whether we achieve them or not. As an example, rather than saying, I want to learn Spanish, you might say, I want to have a 5-minute conversation with a local in Spanish by the end of 2024. That's a measurable goal. Then you need to get some accountability. Well, maybe you book a ticket to Spain, or maybe you have a friend that speaks Spanish and you tell them that that's your goal and you put a little bit of money as a bet. Can you hold that conversation or not? And then the third thing is you have to have a purpose. You have to have a reason why that thing is important to you. If you don't have a big enough driver to actually learn another language, you're probably never going to learn it. So maybe you organize to host a workshop out there, or maybe you have that level of accountability where you know you're going to have to do something where if you can't speak Spanish, it's going to be quite painful for you, or it's going to be something that you don't want as an outcome. So that's how we create milestones. And then we look at those milestones like learning Spanish, learning to have a conversation in 5-minute conversation in Spanish. And we break these down into projects, right? So what are the things that are actually going to get us there? So, you know, the first project might be around how we're actually going to learn. So project number 1 might be deciding how we're going to learn this Spanish. Are we going to get a teacher? Are we going to use an app? Like, what's going to be the method? And there's going to be steps in that, right? There's going to be maybe researching what's the best way to learn Spanish. It might be reading a book and deciding whether that's how you actually learn, testing a few things out. Then another project might be actually getting good at the grammar or the pronunciation. So there's going to be kind of elements or kind of big rocks, as we sometimes call them, that make up these milestones. And then finally, there's going to be rituals that you do on a daily and weekly basis. And in the context of Spanish, this would be simple things like practice, right? Practice speaking Spanish every day. Spend 5 minutes on the app every day. And so this whole system applies to business, and it's the whole system that we use to run our business, but also the system we use to help our clients who are small creative agencies. Because if you're anything like me and you've got a creative brain, it tends to be a little bit scatty. People talk about ADD or whatever. Really, for me, it's just distracting. Being distracted by shiny new objects, being distracted by things that feel creative and fun. And often they're not the things that are going to move the needle in our business. So right now we're going to be focused on this bottom layer here. This is where the, if I just get a highlighter, this is kind of where the weekly planner sits. It's the things that are going to allow us to make sure that we take these goals up here and projects and make them tangible. So the first thing that I will always do is I will always brain dump. And a brain dump is simply the process of going through and emptying out my entire brain onto a page. Everything that I think I need to do or everything that I need to think about. And it could be related to clients. It could be related to our website or our social. It could be related to personal. It's just really about getting all of those things out of our head down onto paper. This works for a few reasons. Number one, it means that we don't forget anything. But number two, our conscious brain or our prefrontal cortex, more specifically, isn't very good at storing lots of information, and it makes us feel like we're overwhelmed very quickly. It's been cited why phone numbers are the length that they are, because that's about the maximum amount of digits that we can remember in our kind of prefrontal cortex, that kind of part of our brain that processes things. So that's the kind of reason why this is so important, and it just really clears up that RAM. I like to think about our brains as a little bit like a computer, and you have RAM, that random access memory. That's the short-term memory where we try and store things. And if we try and store everything up there, we are going to fail miserably. So the first thing we do is we're going to brain dump, get everything down onto paper. There's a system that I learned when I was studying NLP called chunking. And what chunking is about is it's about taking things that live in the same category and making them all part of one. So you might have a bunch of things related to clients. You might have a bunch of things related to websites, and your brain dump might look something like this. And it might feel like you've got 1,000,001 things that you have to do. But if you can find a way to group these into, say, this is all related to clients, this is all related to our website, this is all related to personal stuff, picking up the kids, all of that kind of stuff, then what happens is your brain finds that more manageable because you're chunking up, so it kind of sits within those bits of information that it can remember. And so we kind of then just like chunk things together, and that makes us feel a little bit more organized. So I'm talking through this as I go, but we have actually got a Notion template for this exact system. So you can click the link in the video below and grab a Notion template, and this will make way more sense. I'm going to run through that in a second, but this will make way more sense for you. So that's the first thing we do, we brain dump. Then what we want to think about is we want to think about those longer term goals, those projects, those 12-month goals. And this is actually from a book called The One Thing. But this is where we really want to think about leverage. Like, how are we going to leverage those things that we've written down? Or maybe this is actually unrelated. Quite often I find that all the stuff I've written down here is really just the noise, the stuff going on, other people's priorities. But the thing that's actually going to move the needle in our business, for us personally, is something totally different. And so what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll look at this original plan. I'll really take some time to just look at our goals. What do we really want to achieve this year? What are some of the major projects that we're working on internally to get to that thing? And then I'll ask myself these kind of questions. What one thing, if I completed it, would make the others redundant? I.e., what's the one thing that if I did this would probably like mean we don't even need to update our website, or probably we don't even need to do this thing for clients? So that's like one question that we can ask ourselves. The other thing is like, what's just the one thing that if I completed it this week would move me exponentially closer to our 12-month goals? So that's why it's so important to spend time looking at these goals and these milestones and figuring out what projects we're prioritizing, because there's probably one or two things in there that are the highest leverage tasks. And then the other thing to just ask yourself is, if I got to the end of this week and I'd only achieved one thing, what one thing would make me feel really great about the week? What one thing would make me feel really productive about this week? So just spend some time thinking about that right now. And just for context, I spend at least an hour a week going through this process. And when people hear that, sometimes they think that's crazy. You spend an hour planning your week. But just think about it. if you worked on the wrong things this week and you were just all action orientated, that week could be pretty much worthless, right? If you're just getting caught in the business and you're just working on things that come to you, i.e. you're being reactive rather than proactive, then that time is essentially wasted. So an hour of your time might seem like a lot, but if you know you can get 2 or 3 really high value tasks done by just having that thinking time at the beginning of your week, imagine what that would be like compounded week on week. Imagine what you could achieve in a month. So they're the kind of questions that I ask myself. If I'm really struggling to prioritize things, or if I'm really struggling to figure out what that one thing is, I always come back to this concept of the priority matrix. And sometimes I will give the items that I've written down a priority, like A, B, or C. But ultimately, we're looking for the things that are high impact, low effort. They're going to be the things that are what I would call our green tasks, right? They're high impact and low effort. Then we've got things that are kind of high impact but quite high effort, right? And these would be things that would be like bigger, longer term projects, or we would need to block out time in our calendar to actually do. And then the worst kind of task is low impact, high effort. So this is kind of our red zone here. We don't want to really do any tasks. We just want to get rid of those, just eliminate those totally. We don't want anything that it takes a lot of energy but doesn't really have a lot of impact. And then obviously things that are low impact but low effort. Sometimes they're the things that just have to happen in the business. So again, that's kind of our orange. So we obviously want to focus on as many green tasks as possible. Tim Ferriss talks about this quite a lot. He talks about elimination, delegation, and automation. So eliminating these red tasks, just not doing them at all. How many of these kind of low effort, low impact tasks can we automate? And how many of these higher effort, higher impact tasks can we delegate? And then we're just left as the business owner with the high impact, low effort tasks. And when I say low effort, I don't mean it's not difficult. For me, low effort is something that's within my zone of genius. I.e., for me, recording a video like this is actually quite a lot of low effort. These things we've already kind of prepared because we talk about them with our clients, so the slides are here. And I'm really just sitting here talking to you, having a conversation. But in terms of impact, it can be quite high. It might be the difference between someone deciding to work with us or not. It might just be the insight they needed in their business in order to really move the needle and start prioritizing themselves and really start generating the kind of revenue they want. So there's a lot of potential impact for low effort. It doesn't mean that this isn't hard or I don't put time and energy into it, but because it's within what I call my zone of genius, i.e. the tasks that feel like I'm in flow and the tasks that I've spent a long time perfecting that skill, it means that it isn't massively effortful for me. Okay, so they're kind of like the high impact tasks. So we want to think about those things. And then that's how we're going to prioritize our week. We're going to have that one thing at the top. Like if I just did this, it would really move the needle. And you can have a maximum of 3 things that you can focus on in your week. And I'll tell you how this converts to the Notion document in a minute. The last thing is how we actually schedule these. So what you'll find is that there's lots of different things that come out. So the one thing might be, if I just formed a partnership with this person and I was able to get in front of their audience, that would be massive. That would be huge leverage. If I was just able to get them to agree this week to that partnership or sign that partnership, that would be massive. But there's probably going to be some elements to that, right? So there might be, from an admin perspective, there might be some contracts that you need to sign. From a communication perspective, you might need to set up that call or that meeting. From a deep work perspective, you might need to have to put the sales presentation together. And I've just put this clients bucket because there's going to be a bunch of stuff that fall into actually just serving your clients. But the reason I do this, I learned this from a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And in that book, he talks about the science of task switching. And there's a lot of research that suggests our brain isn't good at task switching. And every time we switch a task, it's almost like resetting our brain, and we have to start from scratch, i.e. there's no momentum, and it actually creates a lot of cognitive load on our brain. So the part of our brain that we use to do calls and communicate with people is different to the part of our brain we use to do our deep work, to build the presentation, or in your case it might be to do the animation or to design the thing or whatever it is, right? And so it's really important that we schedule this time based on our energy and our focus rather than just what we think is important. And so this is where time blocking comes in. You might have heard about this before, but you can see this calendar looks crazy, but really what's just happening, this isn't my calendar, by the way, I've taken this as a screenshot. And what this person has done here is they've really kind of got this morning focus time. So this would be their deep work. And then you see here that they've got meetings here in the afternoon on most days. So they know that most of their meetings that they have, they're better off around lunchtime or just after lunch. They know maybe that's when they communicate best, that's when they've got the most energy, or that's when they feel most like talking to people. Maybe they don't like talking to people in the morning, right? Because they've got this kind of personal time and this focus time. So again, this is not a prescription. It doesn't have to be this prescriptive, but this way you're ensuring that your time blocks are within these kind of categories. The way I imagine it is like your brain is kind of resonating at different frequencies, and you need different levels of concentration to do calls than you need to do deep work. And you've probably had this experience yourself. You've probably been working on something, really just getting into the flow, and then someone comes in, or the phone rings, or an email pops up, or a Slack notification, and you get interrupted and you start communicating, and then you try and get back into that flow, and it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same feeling. And the reason for that is because you've switched into a different gear in your brain, a different way that your brain operates, right? And we all take these things for granted. We all take talking and writing and doing all these different things for granted. But if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, they are evolutionary skills, and they're things that we have to learn to do when we're younger, to read and write. And using our imagination, we didn't have to learn to do. That was just something that our brain did automatically. So that creativity, that deep work, is using a different part of your brain than reading or writing or kind of responding to emails. So it's really important that we segregate that. And for me personally, I actually just put my phone on airplane mode and I close everything down. So if I'm in deep work and I'm designing something or I'm recording something like this, then I can't be disturbed. So that's kind of the principles of the weekly planner, and that's how I do it and time block this out. What I want to share with you briefly is just the Notion template that I've linked to in the video down below, so I can actually talk you through how I plan my week and how this actually works in reality. Okay, so this is the weekly planner, and you can download a copy of this with the link below. I've got some instructions here which just tells you to start by capturing all the things that are on your mind. So that goes back to this, the first thing that we talked about here, which is the brain dump, right? Getting everything out of your head. And so I do this on a Notion document because I like to share it with my team, and I like everyone to be able to see it, to be able to kind of give their 2 cents on what's important this week. And I will literally just get everything down that I can think of. Sometimes the way I categorize this, I just do it by adding another title here. So I could just type something like personal. Don't worry, this is all my personal stuff. Hey, this is stuff relating to clients. This is stuff related to our website or whatever project it is, and just brain dump everything first and then kind of move things around and categorize it. And that's where our chunking comes in. Then I'll ask this question, like, what is the one thing that we really want to achieve? And again, this comes back to this kind of crucial question, and I cannot emphasize the importance of this enough. Spending time really thinking about where is the leverage here? What are the things that we're really going to focus our time and our energy on, and sometimes our money, because we're actually paying other people to do these things as well. And this is, again, in relation to our business. Like, if we did this one thing in our business right now, what is the thing that would really catapult us towards that 12-month goal or that 12-month vision? And then I would just basically, these questions are to help me justify. And I might do this with my team. I might just do it on my own. But I have to explain, like, how will this one thing actually move me closer to my goals, right? So for example, something that we did recently, and I'll give you some examples as we go along. Something we did recently is we launched a workshop. So I might say something like, have 10 paying members to our next workshop, right? If we just had that as an outcome, if that was the one thing that we achieved this week, I'd be really happy. How will it move us closer to our goals? Well, it will allow us to test a new acquisition strategy as an example. That's not how you spell acquisition. Then why have I chosen this as number one goal? It's just like more justification, more sense checking that this thing is the right thing to be focusing on. And then underneath here, I'll just put actions. I've kind of given some examples here, so you can edit these. And I've shown in red, in amber, and in yellow. I've just kind of done these in terms of like a bit of a priority, but you don't have to do this. Again, very much recommendation, very much a framework rather than a prescription. But I'll type everything down here that I can think of. So, maybe like send email to database, might be like send offer to partners, all the things. Sorry, I can't type today. It's because I'm trying to talk and type at the same time. Send offers to partners, etc. And then I might just drag that and be like, well, that's a communication thing, right? So that's going to live down here. Replace that. That email thing is more of an admin thing, although I've got to write the email. So maybe that's an action that goes into deep work. And I'll just put this all down, and it just helps so much, because when I block out deep work in my diary and I look at this one thing and I think, right, I'm going to do some deep work this morning. What am I going to do? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on that email to the database, because I know if I send that out, it's going to be massive. So if I can spend half an hour, 90 minutes writing that email, and it's a really great email and it gets people to sign up, or building the landing page or whatever it is, then that's going to be massive leverage, right? So it's worth my time, and I'm going to block it out, and I know I'm going to do it here. So I don't just get up, open my email, and then all of a sudden I've got a bunch of client requests, or I've got something that crops up, and before I know it, I'm being sucked off into somebody else's priorities, and my day just starts totally randomly based on somebody else's priorities. I'm being intentional with how I spend my time. I know this is difficult, right? I know it's difficult when you've got client demands, when you've got bills to pay, when you've got teams to feed, but it's so important. If you can make this mindset shift, it's absolutely massive, and it will change the trajectory of your business. And so we just repeat this. So we then have the second thing, if there's something else we want to achieve this week, and the third thing. And then at the end of the week, we just have a little recap. Did we achieve these things? If not, why not? If we did, how do we do that? And how can we replicate that next week? What did we learn? So we very much believe in our team and our business, and I very much believe that there is no such thing as failure. And I know that sounds so cliche, but there's only two outcomes that you can get from running your business, right? Or trying these things. You either win, i.e. you get the outcome you want, or you learn something. Like, we tried all these things and it didn't work. Great. Well, we just narrowed down a bunch of ways that don't work to try and achieve this outcome. Or we tried to achieve this outcome, but we got sucked into all these other priorities. Okay, great. Well, now we know that that's a danger, or that's a thing. So as long as you're learning, so every single week at the end of the week, we ask our team, what were your wins and what were your learns? And we do this for our clients as well. And it's really, really important, because sometimes you don't appreciate how much closer you're moving to your goals. You don't even appreciate what you've achieved over a week or a month, because you're so busy working your business, you're not taking that time to look back and reflect. So hopefully this video was valuable for you. That was our week planner, just a little insight into how I organize my week, run my business, and how we help creative agencies and creative studios to go from disorganized, running around everybody else's priorities, to actually focusing on themselves, focusing on the things that are going to move the needle, and actually building the business that they want to build, rather than continually building their client's business. Don't forget, if you want a copy of the week planner, you can click the link below. Until next time, my name is Matt Essam. I'll see you soon.